Traveler, Paimon, I explained the situation to the Tenryou Commission and showed them the original documentation. In the end, they believed that the mystic Onmyo Chamber and I were innocent.
Awesome! Does that mean you can start to focus on your original assignment again?
That's right. I've also restored the mystic Onmyo Chamber to its original state. A domain dedicated to honing martial prowess. With time, this domain may exhaust itself of charm magic. When that time comes, I will let it lie dormant so that power can gradually reaccumulate. Now might be a good time to give it a try. Are you up for the challenge?
Yeah! Count Paimon in!
Hi guys, bit of a off-the-cuff video here. This footage has been collecting dust for like a couple weeks now. This is like the last of the Labyrinth Warriors. So I wanted to show off the last act, but I also wanted to actually, as I promised back in Act 1, actually show a video of what Labyrinth Warriors is like and how it functions. The event's over now. As I planned to upload this shortly after Act 4 came out, but I just got distracted with other things and it never happened. And it crossed my mind that I never got around to it, and now actually is the perfect opportunity, because to disappoint some of you, unfortunately, the next Final Fantasy part won't be ready for tomorrow. I'll get it ready. It has to be ready for Friday. Just because I already had a few things planned in motion and already had a few things working through, and admittedly because I expected the Castlevania project to take just that teeny glimmer bit longer than it did. I was expecting it to be 8 videos when I planned it, and it ended up being 7. The next Final Fantasy part's just not ready. It won't be ready by tomorrow, and if I like rush myself through it to get it done, it would be low quality, and I'm not a fan of that idea, so it is what it is. You're gonna get a bit of this today. A bit of the Senran Kagura crossover game, because I'm actually having a lot of fun with that. I think that game's actually really charming. It has some problems, don't get me wrong, but it's really charming. And actually showcase how this works. The general idea of the Labyrinth Warriors is that you're essentially working your way through a procedurally generated dungeon. Well, it's technically not procedurally. The game makes you think it is, but it's not. It's the same layout every time, with almost the same rooms every time. It's just you can get power-ups that change what some of the rooms are to make the journey easier for you. But they could absolutely make it procedurally generated, and they spoke a lot when they were talking about it of how they did have a randomizer to generate these dungeons. It's just once they were generated, they basically saved them in. So that they became the dungeons that we got. Which gives me promise for an idea I hope they commit to in the future. I mentioned a number of times, and the whole community keeps on saying it, Labyrinth Warriors shouldn't just be an event. This shouldn't be an event that's now passed us by and isn't coming back anytime soon. It should be standard endgame content. Because right now, the only standard endgame content, as in like endgame stuff that isn't tied to events or isn't time limited or anything like that, is the Spiral Abyss, and that's it. Either trying to like spam the same dungeons to upgrade your characters, but that doesn't count. That's grinding. That's the same in most games. There's always, like in RPGs, half of your end game is grinding. It doesn't mean the grinding is the end game, you know. But in terms of actual end game content, it's only the Spiral Abyss. If they made it so like every other week the like rewards reset in this, similar to the Spiral Abyss, or actually in my opinion I think it'd have to be sooner of a rotation. Spiral Abyss works for how long of a rotation it is, because of how much effort you have to make to burn through it. But this being a lot simpler in how it's handled and how like more linear is the wrong word because it's randomly generated, but linear in terms of progression and finding your way through it and just how it handles itself. I genuinely think it would be in this game's best interest to have this as main post-game content and make it rotate new rewards like every week. Maybe I imagine they would make it so the rewards aren't as good as the Dune the Spiral Abyss. Or maybe make it just like a daily reward thing. That would be nice. Where because it's randomly generated, it's just if you do it once a day, you get like something. Where even if it's not much, it'd have to be Prima Gems, otherwise no one would bother fucking doing it. And so it'd have to be very little, because this is MiHoYo and they are adamant on not giving out Prima Gems unless you really, really fight for it. But it would be an idea. Like, the fact that this isn't post-game content is ridiculous. But the way how it actually works is that you go into rooms and there are charms. There's various different charms. Most of them are like battle charms. You activate them, do whatever it says, and then you get to take a charm for yourself, and it lets you pick a free. And they're basically like buffs to either you or the environment to make combat more manageable. Like, it might be per destructible environment thing you hit, you get a 1% boost in defense, capping at 10%. These green ones are heals, which will also allow you to rearrange your party. When you first start it, it gives you the option of main party and backup. When they say like backup or reserve party, they don't mean the second party is actually doing something. They just mean when you go to these green things, you can swap people out. Because if characters die, they're gone. You can't revive them. I say that I don't have a Barbara C6 in the team to know if skill-based resurrections still work, but there's a part of me that imagines it won't, just because it would disrupt the balance of how this works. But that's the general consensus. You work your way through each room, fight the fights that progressively get harder and harder as you go, find your way through it, pick up rewards along the way, fight the boss at the end, and you win. And the reason why it make good endgame content, despite the fact it's kind of basic, is the random nature of it. It's something to do. You randomize the layout of the rooms, randomize the number of enemies or what kind of enemies. You could add little properties here and there, like every other update, to just kind of spice it up with like different random elements that can be added to it. You could make it so it's more than 2 floors. Which, speaking of, I only show off 1 floor because the second floor is, you know what it looks like. I just wanted to show off what the actual, what this actually was like, the Labyrinth Warriors actually was like, so you knew what once was. But yeah, that's kind of all I have to really say with it. So I'll quickly take the rest of this to talk about the future, I guess, since there isn't going to be an update video just yet. I might do one at some point, but the general consensus is that the 7 Remake's going to be going on its own for a little while moving forward, but probably not for the entirety of its duration. It's just for a while. It's going to be transitioning to 5 videos a week. I say for a while because, like I said, we're not doing it this week because my plan was just not organised properly, and I didn't realise Castlevania was a part shorter than I thought it was, which is just my bad. I should have just like checked and did more of the editing sooner before I started planning around it, when I just didn't. I had all the footage. I mentioned before when I first announced it, I had all the footage for Castlevania recorded and good to go. I just had to edit it. And it was just when I looked at the length of the footage, I gathered it would be 8 videos, and it wasn't. The finale and the extras ended up both slotting into 1 video instead of being separated. Because if I had separated them, well, you saw, if you watched it, like when the credits rolled, the video would have ended there, you know? Oh, that's something else to talk about whilst we're here before I completely transition to other topics. It's hard to notice, but the reason why I jumped down here wasn't just for this chest. In the middle of the bridge is a curse zone. That like black glitter coming off the ground. Touching them will do 1 or 2 things. They'll either just hurt you because they'll blow up, or they'll put a curse on you. Curse are like negative charms that they are attached to you, and they will nerf you in some form or fashion instead. Like one of them makes it so you take more damage from explosives. One of them is your defense is lowered. Like, it's just general things like that that makes life harder for you. Additionally, you saw me put a like sigil down on the ground. You can carry 3 of them with you, and to be honest, I only used one to show it off because I never use it usually. Well, I never did before the event went. There's more you can do, and more than enough without them. They're just there to turn the tide in little ways, like making water damage more effective, or making an AoE around you to protect you, or making something defensive. You know, just like a little extra to help turn the tide in an awkward situation. Something else that I kind of hope they expand upon and would make proper endgame content with this, like making those charms feel more worth it. Because they could go super goddamn crazy with the bosses and enemies in this if they lean into making the charms really powerful, or making the things you can put down on the ground really powerful. Like, if they make it a power match, they can go crazy with it. They could make some really interesting encounter situations through this. But they, at least for now, they're not. In the same vein that I felt like the hide and seek, well, so not in the same vein because it's for different reasons. The hide and seek mini game event they did in 1.5, Wind Trace, that I feel like should have been permanent content and just had like daily rotation rewards. And I say that because it was entirely heartfelt, positive, cooperative play that didn't add any extra stress. It was a stress breaker event. And in the main game, unless you want to count the fishing, which I don't, because I find it kind of annoying personally in this game. Some games fishing's really fun. In this one I just find it kind of time consuming and like not much else. there isn't much in this game that's actually stress breaker content. Like, there isn't anything outside of fighting, really, to do, you know? It's only fighting in different forms, whether it's domain crawling, whether it's doing the daily commissions, or things like that. Like, it's almost entirely combat-based. And so having an event which is literally playing hide-and-seek, prop hunt, with randos online, it was just a really nice event that was kind of hearty and fun and, like, sparkly, I think. That I think should have been kept around and just had like daily rotation rewards of some kind in it to make it feel more worth it. If people kept going back and doing it, because I would have happily done it every day, like one game a day or so. And if they added like more maps to it as it went on, then yeah, like every other update, just add more like little places to run and do hide and seek in. Imagine if they did a hide and seek spot that was on the islands from 1.6, the archipelago. That would have been really fun, but oh well, beggars can't be choosers. It is what it is. But I might do an actual video, just to change subject slightly, an actual video talking about the Neptunia Senran Kagura game, but I'm not too sure yet. It was a very much a we'll see, because I ended up not doing one on the Cyber Dimension Neptunia game a few years back, despite the fact I had every intention to, because I enjoyed the first half of Cybernet, but found the second half very boring, and it eventually kind of killed my interest. I got the platinum trophy for it, uninstalled it, a few months later sold the game and have never looked back. It wasn't interesting. It was very underwhelming, unfortunately. Which isn't entirely that game's fault. A big problem with it was the fact that it was way too short and didn't have enough side content, and the gameplay was kind of limited because of the fact they were pushing for the whole co-op nature. Whilst the Neptunia Senran Kagura doesn't have that co-op, so it's a lot more reliant on you, and so gives you more tools to play around with, making it more fun. Even if it's pretty repetitive in places. Now don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. But for someone who's been looking for a new, like, snappy, fun action game to play, since, you know, the Devil May Cry series is dead in the water, Kingdom Hearts is going to have another entry in a very long time, and that game wasn't technical really anyway.
Orders given.
And,
orders received.
like, Tales of Arise, although taking its RPG route, was still very RPG over action in how it handled itself. I've been looking for just a snappy action game to play that isn't on the longest end, but it's just fun to crack on with and experiment with. And right now, the Neptunia Senran Kagura game is doing that for me. But I've got to wrap this up. I'll see you guys presumably in the next Final Fantasy video, but regardless of what it is, you guys take care. Peace.